All right, buckle up, because today we're stepping into the polished, presidential, and jaw-droppingly pricey world of Barack Obama. Yes, the man who once walked Chicago's South Side as a broke community organizer now casually wakes up in an $11 million Martha's Vineyard mansion, writes books that outsell Marvel movies, and cashes checks so big even Wall Street bankers do a double take. Welcome to Barack Obama's $70 million lifestyle, the unofficial sequel to Hope and Change, except now it's Homes and Champagne. But before we peek inside the mansions, the motorcades, and the money machine, let's rewind. Because this story, it didn't start with red carpets and Secret Service. It started in Honolulu, Hawaii, August 4th, 1961. Yep, that's right. The only U.S. president born outside the contiguous 48 states. Forget the mainland. Obama literally entered the world surrounded by palm trees and Pacific waves. Not a bad opening scene. And his life? Oh, it was destined to be different. Picture this. A mother from Kansas, Ann Dunham, brainy, curious, with roots stretching from England to Germany. A father from Kenya, Barack Obama Sr., charismatic, ambitious, and already married back home. Because life loves a plot twist. The two meet in a Russian class? No, seriously. Fall in love, and 6 months later, boom, Barack Jr. is born. A baby who was, from day one, a literal blend of two worlds. But like any good movie, the fairy tale cracked. Divorce hit in '64, Dad went back to Kenya, and Barack grew up with more questions than answers about his father. He only saw him once after that, in 1971 when he was 9. Their reunion was brief, their goodbye permanent. A decade later, his father died in a car crash. Painful, yes, but it also lit a fire that would shape the rest of his life. And here's where things get interesting. Barack's mother remarries, this time to Lolo Soetoro, an Indonesian grad student. Suddenly, little Barack isn't running barefoot in Hawaii. He's living in Jakarta, eating exotic food, picking up a new language, and navigating a whole new culture. Imagine being 7 years old and trading peanut butter sandwiches for fried grasshoppers. That's a childhood shift even Netflix writers couldn't script. By 10, though, Barack's back in Hawaii, this time living with his grandparents. He gets into Punahou, an elite prep school where he rubs elbows with the kids of CEOs and future movers and shakers. Translation: while his friends are comparing new surfboards, Barack's quietly building the network that will carry him far beyond the islands. Flash forward to 1979. High school diploma in hand. Barack's off to Occidental College in Los Angeles. Fun fact, he was there on a scholarship, but instead of cruising through classes, he's wrestling with bigger questions about race, justice, and where he fits into America's messy puzzle. After 2 years, he transfers to Columbia University in New York. That's like upgrading from the minor leagues to the Yankees. At Columbia, he studies political science. But here's the catch. He's not just memorizing international relations theories. He's out there in New York grinding, working as a financial researcher. Sounds fancy, right? Except he hated it. Picture Obama in a suit, staring at spreadsheets thinking, this can't be it. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. So in 1985, he makes his first bold pivot. He ditches corporate paychecks for community organizing in Chicago. Let me repeat that. He left a comfy office gig in Manhattan to work with struggling neighborhoods on the South Side. That's like quitting Goldman Sachs to run a food bank. But it was here, walking those streets, fighting for jobs and housing, that Obama found his voice, his purpose, his reason to care. And here's where the future president energy really kicks in. In 1988, he takes a trip to Kenya to meet his father's family, a deeply personal moment that locks in his identity. He's not just American, not just Black, not just Hawaiian. He's all of it, woven into one. That same year, he gets accepted into Harvard Law School. And not only does he attend, he dominates. First African-American president of the Harvard Law Review, mic drop. That one move puts him on the national radar. Suddenly, the media's calling. Suddenly, this lanky guy with the funny name is a somebody. And while law firms are throwing six-figure offers his way like candy, Obama's like, nah, I'll take purpose over profit. Instead of diving into Wall Street law, he goes back to Chicago, joins a small civil rights law firm, and teaches constitutional law at the University of Chicago. Imagine being a college kid casually taking Intro to Constitutional Law from a future president. Talk about a flex. By the mid-90s, he's got the resume, the credibility, and a growing reputation as the guy who can get things done without making enemies. Enter politics. In 1997, Obama wins a seat in the Illinois State Senate. Suddenly, he's the local hero, pushing reforms, building coalitions, and quietly setting the stage for something much bigger. But let's not pretend it was all speeches and policies. Barack also had to keep his home game strong. Enter Michelle Robinson. Oh, you've heard of her? Yeah, the future First Lady. They met when she was technically his boss at a Chicago law firm, and she wasn't exactly dazzled at first. But Barack, he played the long game. Spoiler, it worked. In 1992, they tie the knot. Michelle brings brains, ambition, and style to the mix. And suddenly, the Obamas aren't just a couple. They're a powerhouse duo. From there, the momentum builds. In 2004, Barack steps onto the national stage with that now famous Democratic National Convention keynote. Calm, charismatic, impossible to ignore. One night, one speech, and America's like, wait, who's this guy again? A few years later, in 2008, he's standing in Chicago's Grant Park as the first African-American president of the United States. History made, legacy locked. But here's the twist you came for. The story doesn't end when he leaves the White House. No, that's where the lifestyle upgrade begins. The big houses, the book deals, the Netflix contracts, the speaking gigs that pay six figures for 60 minutes. If the presidency was the trailer, the post-presidency life is the full IMAX movie. And trust me, the budget is enormous. And that brings us to today, Barack Obama's $70 million empire. From mansions with oceanfront views to cars that roar like thunder, to a daily routine cushioned by fame, fortune, and still plenty of influence. But before we unlock the vault on Obama's real estate empire, let me ask you this. If you suddenly had $70 million at your disposal, what's the first thing you'd buy? Drop it in the comments. Who knows, maybe you and Obama would end up neighbors in Martha's Vineyard. Speaking of which, let's take a walk through those jaw-dropping Obama homes. Ready? Trust me, this next part is presidential-level luxury. All right, let's talk houses. Because when you're Barack Obama, you don't just own property, you curate presidential retreats that make the White House look like a timeshare. And trust me, the Obamas didn't settle for one mansion. Oh no. They collected homes like some people collect Starbucks mugs. First stop, Martha's Vineyard. Back in 2019, Barack and Michelle decided they needed a place to breathe after 8 years of 3 a.m. wake-up calls, political drama, and stress levels high enough to power a nuclear plant. So what do? They drop $11.7 million, pocket change at this point, on a jaw-dropping estate in Martha's Vineyard. And calling it a house is like calling Air Force One a plane. This is a 7,000 square foot palace sitting on 29 acres of prime coastal land. The backyard? Oh, it's not just a lawn. It's practically its own national park, stretching down to the water's edge. Imagine waking up, grabbing coffee, and your morning view is the Atlantic Ocean sparkling like it's auditioning for a Rolex commercial. Inside, the vibe is modern but not showy. White walls, clean lines, natural light pouring in, like the place was built by Instagram influencers. You've got 7 bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms, because apparently 9 would be too much, and a balcony that practically screams, yes, I was president of the United States, and now I watch sunsets in peace. The kitchen? Oh, it's ridiculous. All white design, chef-grade appliances, and enough space for Michelle to whip up something organic while Barack debates whether he should write his next book or just shoot pool in the rec room. But the real flex is the outdoor space. There's a massive swimming pool just steps from the kitchen, rolling lawns perfect for presidential barbecues, and a private beach that means no paparazzi drone is getting a shot of Barack in his swim trunks. The man didn't just buy a house, he bought serenity with a side of status symbol. And here's the kicker. While other people rent vacation homes here for $20,000 a week, the Obamas can casually say, nah, we own it. Must be nice. But Martha's Vineyard isn't the only crown jewel. Let's rewind to where Barack and Michelle first planted their roots. Chicago's Kenwood neighborhood. Back in 2000, before the global fame, before the White House, before Netflix decided to hand him and Michelle a production deal, the Obamas bought their first serious home. Price tag? $1.6 million. Expensive for the time, but compared to his current empire, it's like the starter pack. This Kenwood house is pure Chicago elegance. Warm hardwood floors, vintage architectural details, and a magnolia tree in the backyard that looks straight out of a Nicholas Sparks novel. Inside, it's cozy, intellectual, almost academic. You can practically see Barack scribbling speeches by the fireplace, or Michelle balancing family life with her legal career. There's a sunlit office nook upstairs where you just know Barack was drafting Dreams from My Father. There's a dining room framed by a gorgeous arched window where family dinners, campaign strategy sessions, and maybe even the first whispers of a presidential run happened. This wasn't just a house. It was the launchpad for history. And don't get me started on the backyard. Pool, spa, brick patio, all tucked behind privacy walls. For a family constantly in the spotlight, this place was their fortress, their foundation, the one house that truly feels like home in their story. But wait, the Obama house tour doesn't end there, because Washington, D.C. wasn't about to let them leave without dropping an anchor. Enter the Kalorama Mansion. When Obama left the White House in 2017, everyone assumed he'd head back to Chicago full-time. Wrong. The Obamas knew D.C. was still their power base, so they grabbed an 8,200 square foot mansion in the Kalorama neighborhood, one of the most elite zip codes in the entire country. Neighbors include Jeff Bezos and Ivanka Trump. So yeah, the block parties must be interesting. This mansion? It's a full-on fortress disguised as a luxury home. 9 bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms, a sleek gourmet kitchen, and a backyard patio that looks like it belongs in an Architectural Digest spread. And here's the detail that makes it extra sweet. They originally rented the place when they left the White House, but they liked it so much they said forget rent and dropped $8.1 million to make it permanent. Now here's the fun part. Obama doesn't just live in these houses, he works from them. The Kalorama estate has become the unofficial Obama HQ, where he writes, takes meetings, and still manages to influence politics while pretending to be retired. You could argue this mansion is less of a house and more of a presidential command center with better landscaping. So let's recap. A Chicago family home full of history, a Martha's Vineyard retreat straight out of a luxury magazine, and a DC mansion in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in America. The man basically has presidential residences in 3 cities. Forget Monopoly. Obama's playing real estate tycoon in real life. But here's the thing about houses. They're not just square footage and marble countertops. They tell you who someone is. Chicago, that's Barack's roots. Martha's Vineyard? That's the reward for decades of grinding. DC? That's the ongoing influence, the reminder that even out of office, he's still in the game. And if you're wondering, how exactly does a former president afford all this? Don't worry, that's coming up next, because Obama's wealth isn't just presidential pensions, it's a masterclass in turning legacy into brand power. So stick around. Next up, we're diving into the money machine itself. The books, the Netflix deal, the speeches, and how Barack Obama went from $400,000 a year in the White House to stacking $70 million by 2025. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. Okay, real talk. Presidential salaries are nice, but they're not buy an oceanfront mansion nice. When Barack was in office, he made $400,000 a year. Not bad, sure. But compared to CEOs, athletes, or even some YouTubers flexing Lamborghinis, it's basically middle management. So how does Obama leap from $400,000 a year to a net worth north of $70 million? 2 words: the brand. See, when Barack left the White House in 2017, he didn't just walk out with a pension and some souvenirs. He walked out as one of the most recognizable, respected, and marketable figures on the planet. That name, that voice, that calm swagger, gold. And he's been cashing in on it ever since. Let's start with the books. Obama isn't just a guy who gives speeches. He's a guy who writes them too. And when he puts pen to paper, publishers start throwing money like it's a Vegas casino. His first memoir, Dreams from My Father, came out in 1995. Respectable hit. But the real jackpot came later. In 2006, he dropped The Audacity of Hope. That book wasn't just a bestseller. It was basically a campaign ad in hardcover. It hit #1 on the New York Times list, sold millions, and banked him a cool couple million in royalties. Not bad for a pre-president project, but the real payday? Post-presidency. In 2017, Barack and Michelle inked a publishing deal with Penguin Random House worth, wait for it, $65 million. That's right, $65 million for 2 book projects. That's more than some countries' GDP. His 2020 memoir, A Promised Land, sold over 3.3 million copies in its first month alone. Let me say that again, 3.3 million in 4 weeks. That's not a book, that's a cultural event. The audiobook? Narrated by Obama himself, because who else can deliver the Obama pauses like Obama? Cha-ching. And Michelle's memoir, Becoming, didn't exactly flop either. Together, their books turned into a literary empire that could bankroll multiple mansions. So yeah, when people say knowledge is power, in the Obama household, it's also real estate money. Now on to the Netflix deal. Because why stop at books when you can own screen time? In 2018, the Obamas launched Higher Ground Productions, their media company. The pitch? Inspiring, diverse, hopeful storytelling. The result? A deal with Netflix rumored to be worth $50 million or more. Through Higher Ground, they've produced documentaries like American Factory, which snagged an Academy Award, and Our Great National Parks, which features Obama narrating about nature like a chill David Attenborough with presidential gravitas. Even their family dog Sonny probably has Netflix points by now. This isn't just content, it's branding at scale. It keeps the Obamas culturally relevant, financially thriving, and connected to millions of viewers without stepping back into politics. Think about it. Barack may have left the White House, but thanks to Netflix, he still shows up in your living room whenever he wants. That's power. Now let's talk about the speaking gigs. Here's where it gets wild. When Barack shows up to speak, he doesn't just walk on stage. He prints money. Reports say he charges between $400,000 to $800,000 per speech. Do the math. One speech equals 1 year's presidential salary. That's like LeBron James getting paid per free throw. And it's not just a few speeches here and there. Obama's hit events worldwide, from Wall Street conferences to global leadership summits. Sometimes Michelle joins him, doubling the impact and probably doubling the invoice. Together, they're basically the Jay-Z and Beyoncé of public speaking. And here's the kicker. People aren't paying for politics. They're paying for Obama vibes, that calm voice, that optimism, that ability to make you believe change is possible even when the Wi-Fi's down. It's charisma monetized. Add in the pension. By law, former presidents get a lifetime salary. For Obama, that's about $200,000 a year, plus perks like office allowances, travel expenses, and Secret Service protection. It's like retirement with cheat codes. But wait, we're not done. There's also the investments. Obama isn't throwing all his cash in a checking account. He's got stock market moves, retirement funds, and private investments that quietly compound in the background. While the book deals and speeches make headlines, those steady investments keep the fortune stable. It's the difference between looking rich and staying rich. And don't forget Michelle's power moves. She's not just a supportive first lady. Michelle's a powerhouse in her own right. Her book alone sold 15 million copies, and her speaking fees, also in the 6-figure range. Together, they're not just rich, they're unstoppable. So when you add it all up, the $65 million book deal, the Netflix contract, the speaking fees, the pensions, the investments, suddenly $70 million doesn't sound so crazy. In fact, it starts to sound like the Obamas might just be warming up. Now here's what makes it even more fascinating. They've done all this without becoming flashy billionaires. They're not buying private islands or building rocket ships like Bezos or Musk. Their wealth isn't about excess. It's about influence. They've turned post-presidency into a brand, a platform, and yes, a profit machine. And here's the transition. If books, Netflix, and speeches built the fortune, what exactly are they spending it on? Because trust me, Obama's taste doesn't stop at real estate. In fact, his garage might tell you more about him than his speeches ever could. That's right. Next up, we're taking a ride through Obama's car collection. And spoiler, it's part eco-warrior, part speed demon, and part pure American muscle. All right, we've covered the houses, the deals, and the dollars. But here's the question. What's the fun of having $70 million in the bank if you can't enjoy the ride? Literally? Let's pop the garage door and take a look at Barack Obama's car collection. First up, the one vehicle you'll never find on Craigslist, the Beast. This was Obama's daily ride as president, and calling it a car is like calling a tank a metal box. The Beast was a custom Cadillac limousine built with one job: keep the commander-in-chief alive no matter what. We're talking bulletproof glass, bomb-proof armor, night vision cameras, sealed cabin in case of chemical attack, and yes, it even carried blood of Obama's type in case of emergency. Basically, Mad Max would look at this thing and say, overkill. Now that he's out of office, he's traded government tanks for something sleeker. Rumor has it, Obama owns a Bugatti Veyron. If true, that's a $1.7 million supercar that can hit over 250 miles per hour. Imagine the calmest man in politics behind the wheel of one of the wildest cars on the planet. Talk about opposites attract, but Obama isn't all about speed demons. He's also a man of the people and the planet. Enter the Chevy Volt. A plug-in hybrid with eco-friendly street cred, this car shows he doesn't just talk about climate change, he drives it. It's practical, smart, and fits perfectly with his green-conscious values. Then we swing back to his love for history with a Bugatti Type 43 from the 1920s. This vintage gem was way ahead of its time, capable of breaking 100 miles per hour back when cars still looked like horseless carriages. It's part museum piece, part flex, and all about respecting craftsmanship that lasts. And of course, you can't call yourself an American icon without owning an American classic. Obama's got a Chevy Corvette C2, a true muscle car from the 1960s. With its roaring V8 engine and curves sharper than campaign slogans, it's the kind of ride that makes you roll the windows down just to hear it growl. Oh, and for everyday life, he's been spotted with a Range Rover Vogue. Because sometimes you just need a luxury SUV that says, yes, I can carry groceries and look like a head of state. So what does all that tell us? Obama's garage is basically a biography on wheels. You've got the eco-conscious Volt, the power-hungry Veyron, the historic Bugatti, the patriotic Corvette, and the practical yet plush Range Rover. It's balance, legacy, and a little bit of treat yourself. But cars aren't the only passion fueling the Obama lifestyle. Let's talk hobbies. First up, basketball. Obama's not just a casual fan. The man lives for the game. In high school, he played varsity. In the White House, he kept weekly pickup games alive, sometimes inviting NBA legends to run the court. He's a left-handed shooter with a smooth jumper and the confidence of someone who's actually hit a game winner or two. Even today, you'll catch him courtside, rocking that signature cool under pressure look. He's also a die-hard Chicago sports fan. White Sox, Bears, you name it. He even threw the ceremonial first pitch at major MLB games, though let's just say his arm got mixed reviews. But hey, it's not about the pitch, it's about the presence. Now you might think that's where the fun ends, but no. Obama's a man of many layers. He's a music guy too. His summer playlists? Legendary. From Kendrick Lamar to Stevie Wonder, the man's taste is as eclectic as his background. And yes, every year when he drops his favorites list, Twitter loses its collective mind debating whether he really listens to all of them. Spoiler, he probably does. Now let's get real. The biggest part of Obama's lifestyle isn't the houses, cars, or even the Netflix deals. It's family. Michelle isn't just his partner in business deals. She's his partner in life. Their marriage has survived campaigns, scandals, and the weight of the presidency, and they still look at each other like teenagers sneaking glances at prom. Together, they raised two daughters, Malia and Sasha, who went from little girls running around the White House lawn to grown women carving their own paths in the world. And let's not forget the famous family dogs, Bo and Sonny. Bo was a gift from Senator Ted Kennedy and instantly became America's first pup. When Bo passed away in 2021, tributes poured in worldwide. Sonny, the younger pup, still carries the mantle, because what's an Obama family portrait without a loyal, four-legged friend? Even their family struggles made them relatable. Michelle has openly shared about facing miscarriage and going through IVF before their daughters were born. Those moments of honesty made the Obamas feel less like untouchable icons and more like the family next door. If your neighbors happen to have Secret Service agents parked outside, and then there's Barack's wider family tree, which is frankly wild. He's got relatives in Kenya, connections to Irish ancestry, and distant ties to both Jefferson Davis, Confederate president, and George W. Bush. That's right, Barack Obama is distantly related to Dick Cheney. Thanksgiving dinner must look very awkward in the multiverse. But here's the bottom line. For all the money, mansions, and motorcades, Barack Obama's $70 million lifestyle isn't about being flashy. It's about balance. He's managed to turn political power into financial power without slipping into cartoonish billionaire territory. He still plays basketball, still drops playlists, still writes books, and still uses his platform to push ideas bigger than himself. So what do we take from this? That the American dream doesn't just mean rags to riches. Sometimes it means kid in Hawaii to president to Netflix mogul. It means turning legacy into longevity. It means proving you can leave office and still shape the culture. And yes, do it while sipping coffee on your Martha's Vineyard balcony. And here's the final question. If you had Obama-level wealth, would you go for the mansions, the cars, the books, or would you keep it chill and simple? Drop your answer in the comments, because I want to see who's buying Bugattis and who's just paying off student loans. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Barack Obama's $70 million lifestyle, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who still thinks ex-presidents just sit around writing memoirs. Around here, we break down the mansions, the millions, and the moves behind the headlines. And trust me, the next story will be even bigger. So stick around, because luxury, legacy, and a little bit of laughter, that's what we do best.